Say 39.
Number 1.
39.
1.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18. 17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9. 8.
7.
6.
5.
4.
3.
2.
1. It's time for mouthwash. Giddy up.
Hi, and welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty, fresh take on politics. And I bet you're tuning in to see what the big news is. But before I tell you the big news, we got a few changes in the lineup tonight. And the reason we have some changes is two things. We have a couple people that are running for office. So I know you're going to be sad to see that we're going to have Tiffany take a break until after the primary. And Mark Small talk, since he's running for council, guess what? He's got to take a break. So I might, we might as well just fold it up because we don't have a show. But yes, we do have a show. We still have Ed and Tiffany, and we have Jordan Davis filling in for Tiffany while she's out. And I think this is going to be a good discussion. Tonight, we're hopefully going to have Robin Miller on because, as you know, live TV is always fun. Did I say TV? I meant to say StreamYard, but that is the big news. We have signed a deal with Channel 40, WHMB here in Indianapolis, and I will show you right now their coverage area. Look at that. We're going to be reaching all these millions of people out there. So our show's going to it's going to be a little different. What that's going to entail is we are going to do the first 30 minutes as a TV show, and that will air it'll have a 2-week delay. So this one will air on the week of March 6th. So it'll be a delay, but don't worry. If you tune in live with Facebook here, we still have a show. It'll be an hour plus, whatever. But the first 30 minutes are going to be packed with our information that we're going to be putting on our broadcast. And if that doesn't work, we're just going to do the whole hour and they can edit it. But so that's the big news. It's a big step for us. We're going to actually be on TV. We're going to be stars. The bad news is we're going to have some commercials because we have to have a little sponsorship to pay for this fiasco. So if that's, we actually have a commercial. We actually have a paid sponsor tonight. We have a paid sponsor. We're going to have a commercial a little bit later. So we'll basically have 3 commercials in the first 30 minutes. You can advertise on my backstop for my background here for a small nominal fee. We'll place your product. Say if you're a Coca-Cola person and I just mentioned that'll be a little bit of money. We're doing everything. If you want me to wear your shirt, I'll do that for money. I mean, it's like, we'll do it. We'll do it within reason. We'll do that. So we're excited to have that opportunity because I think this is going to be a big step for us in Central Indiana. And we will still be entertaining your questions. Like I said, it is not going to be much different, which we like that because we don't have to be in studio. We could just keep doing our show the way we're doing it. We can still keep on StreamYard, on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. And after the primary, then we'll have our regular show people back. But hey, you might like Jordan so much, we may have to add another person to the show. You just never know. So waiting on Rhonda. We are having some technical difficulties for that, but I'm going to go ahead and bring on She says she's trying. So hopefully she'll get here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on the panel. Oh, wait. We have a commercial. I can do a commercial and then we can bring on the panel on the other side. So let's do that. So, hey, pay attention to our first paid sponsor. This is epic. We have a paid sponsor. This is great. So here you go. Here's the commercial. On the other side of this commercial, you will see our panel.
Welcome to Angel Animal Hospital, Greenwood's state-of-the-art facility for boarding and veterinary needs. From our Hemingway House Cat Condo to our vet suites, let your pet take a vacation when you do. We offer general medicine, surgical care, and dental procedures. We feature a full in-house lab, registered technicians, digital x-ray technology, and human-grade anesthesia and monitoring, as well as surgical and therapy lasers for improved healing. Let Angel Animal Hospital take care of you, because there is a difference in veterinary care.
All right, panel, how are you tonight? Well, let's start here. I'm going to put Jordan on the bottom here. Okay, there you go. That's good. We got it there. I'm going to start with Jordan Davis.
Hey guys, how you doing?
How you doing tonight? Hey, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself. Have you been on our show before as a guest?
Yes, I have. I was on your show as a candidate as I was running for state representative for District 87 this past season.
Oh, I put us on the loser side over here because I ran too and I didn't make it. So I don't have to worry about it. I'm not running for anything, so I can be on the show. So
Same here.
Welcome to have you. So you're going to be filling in with Tiffany's spot here. Hopefully you'll be able to do that, and I think it'll be fine. So tell us, what do you do for a living? What's your hobby, so to speak?
Well, pretty much that's essentially what it is. Currently, me and my business partner started an experimental aviation company in the past 2 years. This was our first operational year. And that was very challenging while launching the company and also starting the campaign. But we're actually working towards starting our 135 process to be a cargo carrier as an aviation company. So we'll be the first minority-owned company here in the state of Indiana and under the age of 35 to do it. So I'm very blessed and humbled by that.
I'll tell you, I mean, we could be your first customer because we have these brand new mouthwash stickers that we could, use the cargo thing. So, hey, we could be your first customer, and maybe T-shirts. You can get T-shirts too to help support our effort. I feel like I'm pimping out this show now to make it happen. So, Lucy, what do you think about that? Is that going to be? Is this going to be a fun adventure going on Channel 40 and all that? So
I think we sold out to the man, so show me the money.
Yeah,
I'm a capitalist, man. I'm an anarcho-capitalist.
Yeah, I want to see one of our viewers or somebody buy Lucy's background. I think that whatever you're selling will sell off the shelf. I mean, she'll promote it. So Ed, you look like every time you come on, it gets darker and dark. What's your wife got you out in the mini bar now or something? Where's your studio?
I'll tell you what it is. He's secretly inside that.
No, I am. I'm trying to, get my light bill paid. So if anybody wants to sponsor lights, I am totally for it. Yes. Pay my light bill. We're good.
Lights on. I thought you were going to be Amish or something. You couldn't have electricity. I don't know what's going on there. But by the way, my wife.
Hey, John, I would just like to say, take a moment to say thank you, though, because you said that's the loser side. I'm not sure how I ended up on the winner side, but I appreciate it.
Wait a second. Raise your hand if you've made it in office on this show. We've all run, right? Raise your hand.
We've all run.
Oh, I take it back. This is the losers program today. See the success
be
on the show. So hey, that's what we do here. That's what we do. We try to make all the underdogs come through. Yeah. So my wife Lisa asked, because she can't be on the panel or anything. She asked if I could post her comment. I don't want the man coming down on me, so I'm not going to post a comment. I may not shouldn't probably mention her name, but she could come on as a candidate. So what we'll do later, maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll have Mark Small and Tiffany come on, and they can come on as guests because we can offer that to everyone. So that'll be cool. But I do see Rhonda Miller in the backstage here. She looks all queued up. So if you're paying attention to our intro tonight, we are going to talk about I think sex trafficking, probably the Kinsey Institute. Lucy, are you familiar with the Kinsey Institute?
Oh, you mean that horrible den of pedophiles? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're fit right in on this one. We're going to talk about the porn in schools law, and I mean all sorts of education. And we got a special treat tonight. We have Jaco Boyens. I said his name right when I interviewed him, so that was all that was important. I got an interview with him when he was here at the State House. Now, if you're not familiar with him, he is a big advocate. Lives down in Texas. He's a big advocate for human trafficking and sex trafficking. Been doing it for a long time. I'm hoping we can get him on the guest as a guest later, probably be after the primary, so we can have small talk and have our whole regiment, because that'll be a big deal. He's a really well-spoken person, and I'm sure Rhonda can speak to that. So let's see. Let's go ahead. You guys ready to bring Rhonda on? I mean, she looks like she's been fighting the internet to get on here tonight. So let's bring her on here, and then we'll do our normal put her on the hot seat. Oh, wait, Jordan gets to be on the hot seat. No, there you go. That's a wonderful thing about not really having an engineer and me being in. So, Rhonda, how are you doing? Are you ready to choke the internet yet, or it looks like you made it?
I am. Sorry for the delay, you guys. My MacBook is a little incompatible at times, so it took me a little bit to get on. I apologize.
It was more like a hack book. So we're excited about this show. This is probably going to be one of our first episodes on WHMB Channel 40. And we're excited about it. So I thought we'd make it a sort of a big deal tonight. So you heard me say I have the Jaco Boyens interview that I did. It's a short little one. We talk about the thing. So we'll have that to talk about. Unfortunately, we don't have Mark Small. He was going to do the Larry Flint case from 1980, which is, I think you could trace a lot of things back to that and the misconceptions of what that is. But I'll save that for later. So, Rhonda, tell our viewers and audience a little bit about yourself and why you're here tonight.
Yeah, my name is Rhonda Miller. I'm the president of Purple for Parents of Indiana. We are a grassroots organization that is fighting the sexualization and the indoctrination of our children in their classrooms across the state and across the country. And we are working hard to expose the Kinsey Institute. Not many people in our state, let alone the nation, really knew about the institute, that it even existed. But it's been my goal and my passion to wake up Hoosiers, the fact that we are responsible for allowing that institute to continue to operate with our tax dollars now, since it's incorporated into IU. So that in essence has been my passion. I've been at this for over 10 years now, going on 12, and trying to educate people as we go, and then fighting legislation at the State House trying to protect our kids.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask the first question because I'm selfish and I'm the host. But do you think a lot of this turmoil we have, I guess turmoil might be a good word, might not be a good word, that we're having in school boards and the porn in school and the sexualization at the early ages, do you think a lot of that stems from this not really going checked or just going unchecked, and it's just taken a while to saturate the system or the schools? Can it be traced to that, or is it just sort of a one-off and nobody really pays that much attention to it?
Oh, no, it's been an agenda for a long, long time. And the whole idea was to undermine our moral fiber of our society. And it goes back 70 years ago. The Kinsey Institute and Alfred Kinsey moved here and set up camp and then started the sexual perversion. He was protected by the CIA. He was funded by the Rockefellers. And he was experimenting on children to determine their sexual from birth. And then once he published his books, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male and then Sexual Behavior in the Human Female, Hugh Hefner actually read the male volume and decided he was doing it all wrong. And then he decided to start Playboy based on Kinsey science and fraud. So that's how Playboy started. And then Playboy actually gave the seed money to Planned Parenthood medical director Mary Calderon. And that started SIECUS, which is the Sex Information Education Council of the U.S. And that's how all this sexual perversion actually started. But it has big ties into pornography, which ties into what you're passionate about, is the sex trafficking. So it all ties together. It's all geared towards the undermining of our moral fiber at the same time going after the minds of our children.
Okay. Well, we're gonna start some questioning from our panel here. We're gonna start with our newest member. We're gonna start with Jordan. And Jordan, you have a lot of times we have a comment comment. You can do a commentary with a question in there, but we have the Lucy rule. Don't do a really long commentary with no question, because I'll ask you, is there a question in there? I mean, she has come along quite nicely. She doesn't do it anymore, but she used to do it. So Jordan, fire away.
Well, thank you. And Ms. Miller, thank you for your work that you do for the community. Looking at the statistics of sex trafficking, it is by far a multifaceted system. It is very blinded in plain sight, if you will. We're seeing it being used on TikTok, on Instagram. It seems that any apparatus that our society really holds as necessary is being abused in some form or fashion. I think my question for you would be, with the work that your organization has done to make this aware, what are we seeing in the parents? Are we seeing parents starting to change their parental behavior a little bit differently? Are we kind of seeing them set up a check and balance system with the boundaries of personal space in a young youth's life versus more responsibilities and moral oversight of the parents? Are we seeing anything of that nature starting to develop at all?
Yeah, and thanks, Jordan, for that question. Yeah, we are. We're seeing a major shift in the parents, and they're realizing that their children's minds are being targeted. I mean, they're targeted on their cell phones, they're targeted on their digital devices that the schools are giving them. But when you come and you look at the literature that is being given to the children that they have access to the schools and the public libraries, people are getting very, very offended, and they're really getting very protective of their children. So yeah, we are seeing a major shift, Jordan, and I'm very, very excited about that. It's people didn't realize that this was taking place because as Americans, we just were living our lives, right, and going about our way and going to sporting events and whatnot, and just trusted our schools that they were doing the right thing by our children, and then they're finding out that no, they're not.
And I agree with you on that. I believe that hypersexualization in the mid 2000s really took off, and we're kind of seeing this runaway greenhouse effect of it, to where with any movie that sells, any music that is being listened to, there's always some sexual component about it that is subliminally, in my opinion, being subjected to the kids, and it makes them have questions about their bodies that too prematurely before they develop, or it may cause cases later on down the road for them that may go untreated. So thank you.
Yep. So Ed, what questions might you ask? You probably are wondering what the heck the Keynesian Institute is, right? Or do you know? You know what it is?
No, I'm familiar with it.
Okay.
But I'm also more familiar in growing up, especially I've talked about it on the show before, growing up within Catholic schools, growing up in an institution where women were treated as you're supposed to look up to this superior man, and that they were betrayed time and time again, several institutions throughout. And it wasn't the sexualization of children as in pornography. It was treating little girls and also many little boys to be subservient and not to speak up, not to say anything. And so here in the state where we are continuing to funnel money to Catholic schools and other private schools, what are we doing to keep a check on that, where we know there's been problems there for decades, and they've continued to shuffle priests from school to school? Are we doing anything about that?
Yeah, that is a concern, Ed, and thanks for that question. Yeah, there is it seems like an overwhelming majority of it, coming unfortunately through the Catholic schools as well as the Catholic Church and various other entities as well. It's not just Catholics, and so I think we have to be fair and say that it is prevalent throughout the religious network, if you will, and it's a very sad thing to see. And I do think that there's conversations that are being had about how do you make those schools accountable as well. So you're starting to see that take place at the State House. And I know there's language that has been looked at and being put into bills this year that would address that. So I do think that is a serious concern that you raise.
Yeah, that is. I mean, because it seems like there's a lot of facets to this that have sort of come together to maybe, as Jordan used a good term, greenhouse effect this thing, and that's good. So before we get to Lucy, who's patiently waiting, as for our new viewers on the TV, possibly, we do post live comments from our Facebook audience and also YouTube. So if you like to watch the show ahead of time, you can watch the show that will be on 2 weeks later. We're on 2 weeks delay with TV, and you can put your question up, and maybe you'll be like Adam Harvey. What are the most intermediate changes you think parents should consider to protect against these problems? So, what advice would you give to parents?
Yeah, Adam, thanks for that question. Honestly, it's not a popular one that people like to hear, but they've got to get their kids out of the schools. They're absolutely too dangerous. They're loaded with this pornographic content in the libraries that they can have access to. And oftentimes you've got radical teachers in there that are using these as curriculum and forcing children to read them out loud in class. And so ultimately, guys, it's not a popular point that I make, but it is one that I think people need to hear and they need to adhere to, is get your kids out of the schools. We are now working with a co-op that we're hoping to, or a private school that we're hoping to use as a model to go across the state with, where they can link arms with their churches. And so that is going to be our next effort to do, is try to help people make that decision and help them get their kids out and rescue them.
Yes, that's. I mean, that is what I hear people doing. And I would, a parallel to that might be that, parents. Everybody used to ride the bus back when I was a young one. Way back when I was a young one, we all rode the bus. Now you have so many people taking their kids, and there's a big line outside the school. And the reason they don't want them riding the bus is because they might learn some cuss words or some bad things or whatever. And I'm starting to think that this is how the school system is starting to go. Now, you're 100% right. It is a very unpopular position, and who most people have jobs, and most families, a nuclear family, the husband and the wife have a job. So that's some tough sledding. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. And honestly, we should be able to trust our institutions. So, Lucy, it is your turn, and then we're going to listen to our interview from Jaco Bouillet. Man, I said it right during the interview, so that's all that matters. Jaco Bouillet. So, go ahead. Jaco. Well, I don't know. It's terrible. He's never going to come on the show. I can't say his name.
Jaco's a friend.
Yeah. John, the first thing I have to point out is the only reason that a man and woman both work is so that one can pay the taxes to the government, and one supports the family, the other supports the government. Indeed, taxation is theft.
Yes, that is.
So,
get it out early.
Rhonda, I think we have an object lesson here behind both the Kinsey Institute and what's going on in contemporary events, where science creates an aura of legitimacy that very depraved and narcissistic people can hide behind. So we have 70 years of Kinsey, right? Teaching people that and normalizing this moral depravity. Is it too late? Can we turn the boat? And if so, how does that happen?
That's a great question, Lucy. And it's one that I get often. And I guess I look at it like, as long as there's breath and there's hope. And I do think that Americans are starting to wake up, and Hoosiers especially are starting to wake up, and they're realizing that we're in hot water. But I'm telling you, we're very close to having that frog completely boiled to death, or going over the precipice, however you care to wish to look at it. But we've got to take action, and we've got to take action fast. Otherwise, we're going to go over that cliff. And so that is something that I do think we have time, but we've got to act quick.
That is, Lucy, they're going to swear you saw the Jaco Bouillet's video before, because I asked that very same question to
I
him.
have not. I have
not seen it. So,
but I'm going to tag on to that, and I'm going to point out that it's the elders who have to maintain the standards. Those of us who, still grew up with a sense of morality and before the progressivism really hit. But of course, the other side of that sword is the euthanasia agenda, which of course ties into the COVID vaccine. So I don't know, if we don't do something fast, we're going to be losing all of our elders.
Yeah, the curtains on the windows are shutting quickly. So Jordan, you're a younger man. It's all your daggone fault. That's what it is. What were you getting ready to say?
No, I don't think it's our fault. I think that Rhonda put it right. We have a point in the trajectory that we can nudge it, but it's a very difficult conversation because we're going to entrench upon these young folks as freedom to express their knowledge or what they learn. We can only shield them so far. I think that it's the battle's kind of lost upon the schools being the battleground for that, where I would have liked it, if we're going to bridge this religion to it, then it needs to be in the house. We need to be taking this fight to when no one's looking, what are you doing as a parent to curb this behavior? Public interest is one thing, but what's going on at home? I think the issue really needs to be driven to the front doors of the families that are going to be dealing with this in the future.
Yep. I mean, raising awareness is the biggest thing. So go ahead, Rhonda, and then we're going to play the Jaco Bouyen's. I said it right.
It's
interview.
Jaco.
Jaco. I'll get it right before the show's over. I'm just glad Tiffany's not here because she would be giving me a hard time.
No, Jordan, you raise a very good point. And I think looking back historically and you're looking at the communist goal to demoralize our nation and then the attack on the family, it is a coordinated effort. And I think we do have to take a step back and reevaluate the way we live our American lives because we unknowingly they've been silently turning up the heat on that kettle. And the destruction of the family has been a big, big part of that. So we do have to reevaluate.
Yeah, and that is a great segue for our guest next week, who is George Middleton, and he is going to explore with us the destruction of the Black nuclear family. So you guys, are you sure you didn't get notes before this show? I mean, this is amazing how you're just putting this all together. People are going to think we practiced this show. But anyway, here, let's listen to Jaco Bouyen's, and we're going to come out on the other side. Maybe I said it right, maybe not. But here you go. I was down at the State House at Rhonda's event, and I was lucky enough to pull Jaco to the side, and we had a little conversation, and there's some cheering in the background from another group that was there that was probably not as friendly with us as we with them, I guess. Okay. Anyway, here you go. Here's that clip.
So I'm here with Jaco Bouyen's. Is that how you say your name?
Yeah, it's close enough.
Okay. And you're from Texas, and you've come up to Indiana to talk about sex trafficking and exploitation of children. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Why do you think people are so timid about talking about sex trafficking?
Because when they dive into it, like I said here, they may learn that they're complicit to a degree, such as watching pornography, and it's hard. You know, self-accountability is a tough thing. So to realize, like, wait a minute, if pornography feeds sex trafficking and they watch porn, then it's easier to walk, because it could bring in conviction, shame, and guilt. And I don't want that. I just want change. I just walk away from porn. Don't be part of the problem.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I do think. But it's like a $2 billion industry, or is it more than that?
No, 150 worldwide.
$150 billion.
150 billion, 52 billion in the U.S.
So
it dwarfs Fortune 500 companies.
So if you're trying to fight this, you're fighting upstream for the money, and also maybe people that are ashamed. And so it really, at what point does the scale tip so far that we can't get it back?
No, look, it never does. Christ redeems and God redeems, and a culture can turn. But culturally, we need to make a decision that, hey, we're going to move towards morality. We're going to move towards human dignity, virtue, the innocence of children. Unfortunately, our culture is not pointing in that direction at the moment.
No, we're here today to talk about porn in our libraries. I mean, if you don't have it, then why are you worried? Yeah. But so how long have you been fighting this fight?
28 years.
28 years. Are we worse, better?
We have sex trafficking in the U.S. have grown 300 to 400% every year since 2015. We're in deep trouble.
Is that because of the profit, or is that just the nature of the beast?
No, it's not the nature of the beast. Because of demand. We're the number one nation demanding sexually explicit content, and we demand that content, and we're normalizing it. We're telling guys, even in the church, well, if he watches porn, that's what guys do. Well, is rape really that violent? Yeah, it's violent. Well, we have states trying to lower the age of consent. What should the age of consent be? We have beautiful statutory rape laws in this country that we don't need to touch. 17 and under is a victim. But when you start falling into groupthink, into the social experiment of saying, well, is it really egregious? Shouldn't an adult be allowed to be attracted to a minor? When you start asking those questions, you're in the wrong direction. And those are the questions we're asking.
Yeah, and that is the question. I think some people's lines are blurry, and keep the good fight up. And I'm here with you, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man.
So there you go. That was Pretty much in a nutshell, and I didn't say his name right either. So I'll get it. I'm going to practice. I'll practice that. So if we can get him on, and Rhonda, you were able to get him to come into town. You and John Schrock, Pastor John, to come in and speak at this, and it was a little unfortunate that the group down below was way louder than us, and I think that is sort of a maybe evidence of what we're fighting against. I mean, you heard some of those numbers. I didn't know. I thought it was just, but it's extreme, and there's a lot of moving parts to this. So, any comments on that? And would you like to talk about Jaco about this and the fight and what he's up to?
Yeah, Jaco is an amazing guy. And I will tell you guys, he was scheduled to be at our very first conference in 2020 here in Napanee, and he wasn't able to make it. His sister, Ilonka, who was trafficked, he talks about her, and this is the reason why he fights. She was here, and she has an incredible story. She's an incredible woman, but that is the reason why Jaco does what he does. And to meet him finally face to face in Indianapolis a few weeks ago was a highlight for me, because he's a true warrior. He's a true champion, and what he's seeing on the border is incredibly disturbing. And he has a film that's coming out next month. Sex Nation will be released on March 23rd. I encourage everybody to look that up on his website and make sure you watch it, because it's going to be very explosive. And so I'm very thankful to know Jaco. I call him a friend. And the interesting thing about when he was there that day, we were up on the third floor, and the other group was down below. And we actually had an Indiana Republican senator who was sitting in the front row of our gathering. And shortly after Jaco started talking, this individual got up and went downstairs, and I wasn't sure who he was, but this just tells you the level of corruption within our own party. He left our event and he went downstairs and took the podium at this ACLU LGBT celebration, and addressed that crowd after he had just been upstairs with us, and he had told Jaco he wanted to help him fight sex trafficking. And then he goes downstairs and he speaks with the very group that does groom children. And so it was very telling, and Jaco was actually shocked when we pointed out that individual had been sitting up in our group. He went downstairs and was talking to them. Jaco was actually caught off guard by that. It was very shocking.
Yeah, I would think we all were surprised, and we were fortunate enough to have a meeting afterwards with a group of people, and we learned even more about this situation. And I think it's educating. So, talk about what we're fighting against. So we do put out polling, and we do this on Twitter. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's Mouthwash Talks 1 on Twitter, and my poll was on that page, or on that spot, was at what age should a child be thinking of and deciding their sexuality? 1 through 6, we actually had 6.3% said that should be that seems right. 7 to 11, 12.5%, 12 to 15, 18.8%, and 16 to 18, 62%. And there was a total of 16 votes on that. So it's still a small sample, but it does give you an idea that there's people that think that 1 through 6 is a time that kids should be thinking about sexuality. And I'll tell you what I was thinking about: what time's recess and what time do we eat, is what I thought about. And I might as well just go through the other polls. So this one's on People Over Politics. It's a Facebook group that you can join. And we have polls on there. We would have it on our Mouthwash page, but you can't have polls on pages for Facebook. So this is same question: what age should children be thinking of or deciding their sexuality? 1 through 8, nobody. 9 through 13, we had 11%. 14 to 17, 5%, and 82% at 18 plus. And nobody had no idea. Nobody was at. They all had a comment. But we did have an interesting comment from a young lady that has some kids. She was thinking that, depending on the kids, 9 through 13 for thinking about it, and 18 plus for deciding. So I thought that was, and me and my poll questions sometimes are a little suspect, but as far as too many details or asking too many questions or, but all that. But I think for the most part, we get an idea that there's some people that think very young children should be thinking about basically sexuality in grade school, in the
That's
early years.
crazy because practically thinking and biologically speaking, until you get sex hormones, you might mimic, what you see at home, like with a mom and a dad or whatever, but you don't have those feelings. And I'm seeing a lot of Munchausen by proxy that's being exhibited in so-called transgender children. Just saw a TikTok. This woman's talking about how she has two daughters, but of course the second one was assigned male at birth. I can't even hardly say those words. It's so disgusting. Or observed male at birth. And I have 10 kids. I understand the dynamics of the littlest one following the older one, right? They just worship their older siblings. And so she said at 18 months, she realized that, this younger daughter was experiencing or exhibiting preferential behaviors like a girl. Well, of course, she's playing dress up with her older sister. Of course, he is, right? And then he goes to preschool and he gets the opportunity to, dress up in costumes and Little Mermaid. And of course, the sickening part about this is the more he exhibits this behavior, the more it allows her to virtue signal. And therefore, the more she pays attention to this child. So now this child is learning that the transaction with the parents is to act like a girl and to observe girl behavior and to adopt that in order to get the attention from the parents. Children, of course, are going to pick up on how they get the most attention. And it's, to me, nothing more than Munchausen by proxy.
I don't know. I think it might be a little bit deeper than that. I mean, we had almost 3 decades worth of the porn industry growing to the point where they're having conventions on a regular basis. I mean, we're very cultural and physical people. I do question the ability of worrying about a child's love language. I understand becoming a human is a very daunting task to some, but to question the very cornerstone and foundation of their youth, that's robbing them of their innocence by proxy to me. And so if we're really going to tackle this issue, we're going to have to figure out financially where we're going to cut the Achilles heel. I mean, we can champion this all day and bring the fight, but unless we can actually hit them in the coffers, physically take this to California, physically take this to the places that breathe this culture on a daily. So that's Miami. Florida needs to be leading the charge on this right along with Texas and California. And for some odd reason, they're not. If anything, they're protecting this industry because it's bringing in money, it's bringing in an economy, it's putting people to work. It's the dark secret we all know about, but it's the taboo we don't associate with. And so we have to realize that we have to hold these executives accountable. We have to show that money's being funneled in those directions if we really want to cause a very quick change. Or we play the long game. We change it philosophically. We spend the next 10 years, the next 2 decades, reintegrating morality back into the system. And we have to build this harvest up. We can't expect some artificial change overnight. The masses doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
so slowly do this change over time.
What comes to my mind is our day at the State House. We saw, we probably had 50 or so people in our event, and they probably had 200 in their event. So you can see the lopsidedness of what the popular opinion is. And as you said earlier, Rhonda, it's not popular to take your kids out of school. It's not popular to go against the grain of these people that say, hey, it's all okay. You hate me if you don't agree with me, blah, blah, blah. So it's good. So Ed, I'm going to go, and then we're going to let Rhonda answer all 3 of these questions. So Lucy had a comment, Jordan had a comment with the theme, and Ed, what's your theme? You got to unmute, Ed. We're on TV now.
You think this is my first time on the show.
I know it.
So I'm going to kind of take a little bit of a libertarian lean here, and the fact that, there's times where Lucy steps back and she laughs because it's Democrats pointing fingers at Republicans and Republicans pointing fingers at Democrats, and they're both sides of the same coin. I'm going to go back to the fact that when we're talking about the church and a history of abuses and issues there, I understand people wanting to fight this issue, but when you come to me and you say, well, the answer is to go back to the church, I don't know. Like, I could go back and see not just 10, 20, 30 years ago. I'll go back to Diary of a Slave Girl when she goes through that whole horrific thing of being sexually abused. And this has been this thing of men of power. I'm sorry, John. I hate to say it. We've had Curtis Hill on this show several times. He never seems, if Curtis called up tomorrow, he wouldn't have a problem getting the thing on this show. He's somebody whose license was suspended for, being sexually
Yeah, but you say
inappropriate.
that, but the women that charged him, their case was thrown out of court just last week. So, where's the truth in that? I guess is what. But I see what you're saying. It's not just him. There's other folks. I mean, we got Jared, we got Sandusky over at Penn State. We got Epstein's Island. There's plenty to go around on that part of things.
To me, it is a very internal look and not just this idea that we could step away and say, okay, well, the answer is to go back to the church. To me, that's not the answer. That's and so I'll go back to Rhonda on that.
Okay, yeah. So we got Lucy, Ron, and we're going to test this is like that that game you play with your kids' memory where you have to remember where the cards are. So go, Rhonda. It's your turn.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot to take in. So I would just say, guys, I take this all back to Alfred Kinsey, because he worked with John Money, and John Money performed one of the first surgery on two twins, transgendered the one, and he drives all of this transgender ideology. And you've got these hospitals, like we have Eskenazi, we have Riley's, they both have beefed up their transgender wings. So to Jordan's point, there is a huge industry that's driving the financial backing of all this stuff to groom our children. And so we have to, again, take this all back to the roots of in Indiana with the Kinsey Institute and John Money. I think John Money even had an office at the Institute at one time. And so I do think that we as Hoosiers own a lot of what's going on across our nation. And we have to be accepting of our responsibility in it, because we're now funding a lot of it. And so to Ed's point, he does have some validity in what he's saying. When I took a look at SIECUS, which stands for Sex Information Education Council of the U.S., I mentioned it a few minutes ago. When I took a look at the book called The SIECUS Circle, which is out of print currently, we're hoping to work with some colleagues and get it reprinted this summer. But it's a fantastic read. It's a really thick book, but it talks about all of the entities that tied into all of this agenda, and it included many of the churches. So to Ed's point, he does have some validity there. However, I would say we have to get back to the root of scripture, honestly. Whether you believe in Catholic, whether you believe in Methodist, whether you believe, just get back to the scriptures. And our foundation is rooted in moral fiber, the moral scriptures of the Bible. And so there is some truth to what Ed's saying, though, because there were so many churches when I made that. I actually put up on our Facebook page, you can go and find it, the SIECUS circle and the diagram for it. And I tied all the entities to it, but there were many churches involved. And to top it all off, many of those churches had their own publishing companies of this sexual material to put into the schools. And so it is a facet of society that reeks into every corner. No place is exempt from this ideology and this targeting of the whole sexual perversion, including the whole transgender issue.
I have a quick question real quick, John, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Lucy, this one might be something that you may find tasteful. Then if the question's coming down to when is the age of intrinsic determination? When do we give our young people the right to determine whether they're trans or not? Now, I'm 100% against indoctrinating our youth, but the pursuit of happiness at a certain age gives us the right to pursue that happiness by any means necessary. So then maybe the middle of the road is we drive home that precipice that this is a red line we will not cross. However, once you're at the age of determination, intrinsic determination, which is 18, you have went through the populace enough, you can have virtue to be a part of the community, you have a right to self-determination. At that point in time, we cannot tell you or infringe upon your rights at that time. But once you're under the tutelage of your parents, like the Bible, age of 12, then that responsibility still falls upon the household. What is going on with the parentals in the household causing this disruption to go on? Why is there such a strong influence outside the house that is having more of a gravitas than the parents' authority and more a moral teaching to their children? So, as I said before, it's going to be a multifaceted issue that I feel that we can't get too far headed on one end of the front versus the other parts of it. The flank still needs to be pushed forward as well.
Jordan, that's some excellent observations. I'm going to walk that tightrope right now with you and Ed, because I am completely in sympathy and in agreement with Ed. We're going to pick on the Catholic Church for a moment because he invoked their name, but I'll also pick on the Mormon Church since I grew up in it. The Mormon Church was founded by a man who literally stole other women's wives and took teenagers as his lawful, heavenly brides, but was bedding them here on earth. So I grew up in a religion that, on the outside, was very pure and had quote unquote pure intentions, but the foundation was absolutely evil. And we go back to the Catholic Church, which has been colonizing and oppressing and murdering First Nations people at an unprecedented rate. I mean, who's going to compete with that? The British, right? The Anglican side of the church. And then speaking to what you said, Jordan, I absolutely agree with the age of 18 as like the line in the sand arbitrary number because it's convenient. You go to the age of majority. We do have to recognize, of course, that not everybody has that mental capacity. So we still need to protect people that, although they've reached a chronological age, may not have reached, an emotional maturity age. But it is up to the parents. And I see the biggest thing happening is what Rhonda said earlier. It's the destruction of the nuclear family. We have young men who are desperate to figure out what it means to be a real man. And they are so desperate to figure that out that they follow people like Andrew Tate, who literally runs pornography sites and does all that kind of stuff. But because of his bravado, his machismo, and his charisma and his money, they're following him thinking that this is what a man is. Until we have real men and women committed to each other in matrimony, where you get a good example of a woman who, serves her family, whether that be working or staying at home and homeschooling the kids, whatever that looks like for their family. And you have that man, that head of the household protecting the family. You don't have girls growing up with enough self-esteem. I mean, I grew up as a teenager. I had a wonderful family. Really great. And yet I still suffered from low self-esteem. I was still out looking for that person who was going to validate me. When if you have that strong father in the home, which I did and still had the self-esteem issues. So what must it be like for girls that don't have that father in their home? I mean, this is really where the moral fabric lies, is the committed man and woman. Man, when you make that baby, it's no longer about you. It's all about that baby. Until that baby hits 18, it's not prison, but it's close.
Yeah. Well, those are great points. And I would say something about a church, but I've actually been kicked out of a church, so I don't think I better be talking about the church. So
all the best of us have.
So yeah. Oh, you too, Lucy. I'm in good company here.
Anyone surprised?
Yeah, I'm not from either one of us. I mean, but so Ed, expand on your thoughts. I mean, pretty much, I think everybody agrees with you on that part of the thing, and I agree with you on males that probably take advantage of situations. And when I became a licensed minister for Disciples of Christ and the United Methodist, we had a class called Healthy Boundaries. Also in psychology, when I was studying psychology, my master's degree, we had another class where you're not supposed to diddle with your patients. And the thing is, and this is even with a teacher and a student relationship, the thing is that student or that patient or that parishioner, they have a trust in you that they're not getting somewhere else, and they want to take that to the next step. And this is what I see that's the problem with this situation, is that these kids look up to these teachers. These kids, because some of them that aren't getting something from home, this may be a substitute for them. And if this teacher is telling them wrong things or things that may be what we call groomers, I know some people don't like that word, but unfortunately that's what it ends up being. If you're thinking that a 1 through 6 year old should be thinking about their sexuality, there's something wrong with you. I'm sorry. I usually don't like I said, this is Mouthwash, a mini fresh take on politics. We respect everybody's opinion, but I'm sorry, that's wrong. So, how do we?
Here's my question to you, John. How long's Barbie been around? Like we talk about people grooming, kids. G.I. Joe for men okay, I'll throw Lucy a bone here of we teach kids to be army soldiers and go kill people like
Call of Duty is
and
developed.
take it one step further. Betty Boop. Let's go old school. Betty Boop. We have been doing this since the Roman times. I guess we adopted antiquity, this part of culture as the nouveau riche. It's okay to be sexually exploited in this avenue if it's in the guise of art. Really talk about it. Teachers having OnlyFans and their students able to see that page. Where it's that blatant. And yet, at the same time as it's blatant, no one's willing to actually cut the levers that may be attached to this in fear of financial punities, whatever the case may be, form of retribution, retaliation. There's so many factors to this. It's like trying to disarm a nuclear bomb without setting it off, and all the wires are yellow. So
and basically sex and violence sells. You look at every movie that's out is if it's not a Marvel cartoon that it has a hero that defeats the villain and all that stuff and gets the girl. That's the basic. All those that's the theme for all this stuff. And I guess we're gonna go. Go ahead.
Just to finish off my thought, I'd also like to, as much as it seems like I've hammered on the church. My big thing, and you follow me on Facebook, John, is putting out there, and I'll agree with our other two guests. Be with your kids, spend time with your kids, focus on your kids. Your kids. This idea that we have to depend on someone else so much to influence our kids. If you're not going to be in your kid's life, someone else is going to be that influence. And so that would be my closing thought on that.
Yeah, so we have one more question here from Adam. He's talking about, because Rhonda's got her ear to the ground on legislature going through right now, and so I read them out because if somebody's listening as a podcast, we always read the questions here. So Rhonda, what is going on in the legislature right now that you think is helpful versus destructive, and other than everything's getting watered down to the point that it's useful? Go ahead.
Oh boy, that's a loaded question right now. So SB 12, we have been fighting, trying to stop the pornography in our schools and libraries for a number of years now. This is the third year in a row that Senator Toms has authored this piece of legislation. And for whatever reason, it was sent this year to Judiciary, which is where Liz Brown is at, and she's been very difficult to work with. And so it did come out of committee last week. We are thankful that it came out, but she tried gutting it. In fact, she did gut it with her amendment. When she got called out on it, then she had to backtrack. And so the bill came out. They're having to do some major effort to restore it to its original intent. And so Senator Toms is working on that. And so we'll see what happens. I think he's going to call it down maybe Thursday on second reading. So we'll see what happens. And then we're prepared for it to go over to the House. Now, hopefully this year it will pass and it will protect the children from pornography in the schools and libraries. So that's step number one. That's SB 12. So another bill that we're watching is House Bill 1608. It was heard in committee yesterday in the Education Committee. I'm not impressed with this bill. I know many on our side are. I'm not, because there's no teeth in the bill. And it drives me nuts when we pass legislation with no penalties and no cause of action, and everybody cheers like they've gotten something accomplished. And this bill only stops gender identity and sexual orientation lessons from K through 12th grade. And that's, or K through third grade, I'm sorry. And we don't understand why you would stop at third grade. This agenda doesn't stop there. It doesn't magically stop in fourth grade. In fact, it's probably just ramping up in fourth grade. And so it's extremely frustrating to see them passing legislation like that. And this bill also includes a piece in it that the the teacher, you can have a radical teacher who is still okay with using the pronouns, and all she needs is a activist student and an activist parent who's willing to sign the paper saying that she wants her child, or the parent wants their child, to be referred to as a special pronoun, and you've still got it in the classroom. I mean, they did say in here that other teachers don't have to be required to do it, and the schools can't make them to do it, but there's a giant loophole. So what do you have when you have a child who's going to multiple different classes, and the parent has signed early on in the school year, this is what my child wants to be called, and you've got some teachers that'll do it and some that are not forced to comply with it? I mean, that sets a very confusing precedence for the entire school, and to learn those kids in the same class with this student. So
I did interrupt you on that one. I'm actually substitute teaching tomorrow at my old grade school. Last time I was there was 1972, and I was in the 5th grade. And I have a hard enough time saying these kids' names that there are today, and they want me to do all this extra stuff. And as a substitute, you're only there for a short time, so it's really hard. And I couldn't even say Yako's name tonight, right? So I mean, it's very, very confusing for just a dumb bricklayer like me to be able to do this. But one of the things I would say, I'm going to give a plug for substitute teaching right now. There is hundreds, thousands, 10,000 openings every day for substitute teachers. We're at critical mass with filling our classrooms with teachers. And when I go, I don't see a lot of males. I just don't see a lot of males. I think we've always thought that, it's the woman's job to teach our kids. But, so that was my soapbox rant about, getting in and help. But, these things are prevalent right now. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Rhonda.
you're absolutely
Sorry to
true.
interrupt.
And if I could say, yeah, no, fine. If I could say one more thing, though, another thing that more bills that we're watching is they are essentially piecemealing the CDC whole school, whole community, whole child program into place. SB1, SB4, House Bill 1002. I mean, you've got many different facets of this, and you could say in some facets that 1608 does that as well. So it's one thing that we need to be aware of, because once this CDC program is fully implemented, this will provide all the services for children. This is going to put mental health facilities inside the school or attached to the schools, and they are essentially going to provide all the services for the children without parental consent. Andy Zay had a bill that would have allowed or required parental consent for those, and it's my understanding they stripped that out of his bill. So this is very telling of where we're headed. And so, like I said before, I think, John, you asked me, what do I recommend? Get your kids out of the system, figure it out, because it's only going to get worse.
I say don't abandon ship. I think that we could actually still save it. I think jumping ship is actually making it more beholden. In this case, it's kind of Orwellian. Eventually, parents, when they sign their kids up to school, they're going to have a packet this thick of permissions they either yay or nay to. And it may come down to that fact that before you come to this school, understand this is what liberties and rights you're giving up, and this is what liberties and rights will be enforced. It's coming to that now. I don't know if in the inner city, if the folks will pull out of that system as much as the rural counties would have that ability to do that.
Yeah, and Jordan, you're right, and that really breaks my heart, because they're the most disadvantaged, and the government knows that, and that's why they're targeting them, and it breaks my heart.
I think that we're seeing some interesting things. I mean, I don't want to. I guess I want to change the subject a lot, because when Yako was talking about Christ redeems, and we see what's going down in Asbury. With all the young people that are just sort of flocking down there, not even to any service that is very organized. It's basically just people going and worshiping and experiencing the Spirit. It's like a revival. So anybody that doesn't know what Ashbury is, look it up. It's creeping up into the media a little bit. People are wondering what's going on, but it's basically a lot of young people that are looking for something different. So, I mean, you could groom a kid, you could tell a kid to go that way, but at some point, maybe that kid figures it out. Maybe it's not right. But there's a proverb that says you teach a kid how to go when he's young, and they're going to go that way when they get old. So we have to watch that. It's a very heavy responsibility as someone that's a teacher we want to do the right things. And I'm probably sure that the folks that are doing some of these things that we're talking about tonight on the other side, they think that it's all good. They're doing the right thing. So this thing's going to get interesting the further we go into it. So we're getting close to the end of the show here. And we appreciate you coming on, Rhonda. And Jordan, you did a great job. I didn't have to mute you or anything on the first thing. And Ed, you had a little spark for me tonight. I don't know. You haven't sassed me ever on the show. You took me on. You got me by surprise a little bit there. So let's go ahead and do the final words here. We'll start with Lucy and go on down, and then we'll let Rhonda do the last words. And then we're going to conspiracy theory because that's not going on the TV show. We're having that. You have to tune in, the live version on Tuesday nights to get these extra goodies as a conspiracy. And man, I got a good one tonight. So let's start out with Lucy on the top with her closing statement, and we'll go ahead, Jordan, and then Rhonda will circle the wagons. And before we go to that, Rhonda, would you like to stay on for conspiracy? You don't have to participate, but we like to see a look on our guest's face if you want to. Otherwise, if you got to go get the muffins out of the oven, that's fine too. So you're cooking something.
No, I'll stay and watch.
Okay, yeah, it's like train derailment. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Indiana, not Ohio. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, what happened here?
Yeah.
So my closing thoughts are: God has called us to come out of Babylon. We are to be a separate people. We are not to participate, and we certainly should not sacrifice our children and expect them to be salt and light within the belly of the beast. And so I think homeschooling has, for those who can do it, it's the best answer. And when my kids were little and I was working and my husband was working, my best friend was already homeschooling her kids. So I just paid her extra as a babysitter, and my children are great readers under her tutelage.
Excellent. Mr. Lip Trap, Mr. Sass, what do you got?
My time as a Catholic lay leader, I've talked about it in the Navy. I spent a lot of time working with LGBTQ people during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And one of the alarming things that I would tell you time and time again was that their participation in the Navy was to get away from families that did not support, did not care, that did not respect their wishes. And so my closing thoughts on this are to get to know your kids, spend your time with your kids, love your kids, and you are the difference in their world. So that would be my closing thought.
All right, Mr. Davis.
Well, mine is kind of twofold. First, I think that we dove into a good conversation of intrinsic self-determination. But I think from not having my father in the household, it is very much so possible to become a virtuous man. It's very much so possible. I agree with you, John, that there's a spark of invention that happens in every young person's life at a certain age. It's not always the same age, but it's at a certain age. And that person needs to look in the future, and they have to see, if I continue on this path, or this generational poverty, or this abuse of what they perceive as normal, if I don't break these traditions, I will be just like my father and forefathers and so forth. So my quote of the night for folks is going to be, there is no winter in the kingdom of hope. There is only spring. And so this case will prevail. We will be justful in what we're trying to do. There will be a moral conversation, but we have to understand too that intrinsic determination is everyone's right once they are an active person of the populace. But our children needs to be protected at all costs. They're the inheritance of all of our hard work that we're doing.
Wow, that's for the first time you're on our show. That gave me some goosebumps there. Rhonda, can you top that?
I don't know. That was pretty good, Jordan. I would just say that I always come at the perspective of, we all have a place to rebuild the wall. And I tell people, you know what, you are responsible for your community, your family, and your friendships in your neighborhood. And then you branch out, you rebuild that, you restructure it, and then you branch out. And so people feel like they're overwhelmed and they don't know where to begin. And I say, just focus on what is right in front of you. And we always have our own place on the wall, and there were watchmen on the wall and there were builders, right? And so I tell people we come at it from that philosophy. And I often think about what Dr. Reisman would tell me. She was the leading expert in Alfred Kinsey, and she often would say, Rhonda, everything is cyclical. It will come back around, but it oftentimes will get worse before it gets better, but it will swing back the other way at some point. So I hold on to hope that will indeed be the case, and Scripture tells us that is essentially what does happen, but sometimes it gets pretty hairy.
Yeah. And I think this has been a very good conversation tonight. I just want to make one clarification on my part, is that, we are not against, you may say, oh, they're just against everything and all that. But hey, if you're of age, I'm as libertarian as Lucy is, as anybody else. I don't think the government should tell you how to do anything, but I'm going to echo what Jordan says. We have got to protect our children, and we have got to keep their innocence intact as long as we can, because this world, it's a tough place, and to go into it making a decision when you're younger that you may regret does not help anything. So, wow, this is our show is a little lighter than this usually, but this is a heavy topic, and I think that's one of the things that people really struggle with on discussing it, because it can get uncomfortable. As you saw, Ed got a little snappy with me tonight. I mean, so you can see how this goes. So, but now a little bit of light levity for the show. You won't be on the hot seat anymore, Rhonda. So that's good. You just be one of the peoples out here on the, in the little squares. So let's get ready with our tinfoil hats. Oh, I may have forgot to tell Jordan about a tinfoil hat, so maybe he just turns his cab driver hat around the other way or something. But and Ed, I'm sure, not yet. I got to play the preview. So here you go. Let's do this, and I'll see you on the other side of it. Oh wait, that's not it yet. There it is.
Hey, y'all, better get your tinfoil hats out. It's time for the conspiracy theory. Come on now, let's go.
Yep, there we go. Oh wait, Rhonda's got to come down here yet. There. So yeah, next time you better have a tinfoil hat, Jordan. So, but it's all my fault that you didn't have that. So and Ed's got his. Yeah, see, you guys have got to get together here. Good. So Jordan, Tiffany usually would do a conspiracy, not a conspiracy, either a makeup tip or something about Bigfoot or whatever. But she has been able to dodge the conspiracy theory for 2 years. Maybe she did one. So we're going to start with Lucy, because she's the expert on conspiracy fact. Ed, he's, fairly good, but I actually have one tonight. So go ahead, Lucy. You start it out and show us how it's done.
The trans agenda is a euthanasia, depopulation agenda wrapped in virtue signaling and profit. So if you look at, and this is obviously a spiritual war that's going on, it is in a very real sense, Satan versus God. When you look at the Baphomet, if you've ever seen, the famous devil on the horns, he's got, one hand up, one hand, as above, so below. You'll notice that he has breasts, male genitalia, and cloven hooves. And so in a very real way, we are convincing young girls to go over to, becoming a male, which means they're getting double mastectomies, they're getting disfigured, they're attempting to grow male genitals, which of course doesn't work because you were actually born with female genitals, so it'll never be like that. And the reverse, we're having these men with breast implants, these young boys getting breast implants, and then of course being literally castrated. So it serves the purpose of depopulation, but it also serves the purpose of honoring in a very real way Lucifer by attempting to make these children look like him. And I blame it on Bill Gates.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, if you don't put that in there, it's not official. But so Jordan, that's conspiracy fact right there. Ed, what is your conspiracy theory?
I just have a thing tonight because this conspiracy thing, Alliance is always a good punchline. And then I worked my way over to sports, and now I think I've adopted the Indianapolis Colts as the new Spirit Airlines because, with the Colts supposed to hire, their new coordinator, Jim Bob Cooter. They're just keeping them punchlines coming one after another, and I am looking forward to. I have a feeling Jim Bob Cooter and me are going to be good friends on this show. So I want to say thank you to Jim Irsay for keeping the punch.
Yeah, well, obviously the Spirit Airlines has cut your feed because you're skipping out, but we're looking forward to some of those because I saw that. I'm like, oh dear, here comes the fun with that one. So, and now we have a new soccer field going in, which I'm sure that the taxation theft that's going on to build that is something else. But I think it's going to be cool. I don't care how much money it costs you all taxpayers. I think it's going to be something that's really cool. But hey, my conspiracy theory has something to do with the two people that used to be on our show that had to go off. We use the premise that they have to go away because of politics. But this is what I heard. This is total rumor. But Mark Small and Tiffany, they have eloped, and they're actually in Hawaii on their honeymoon. Now wait, you're thinking, now how in the world did Mark Small trick Tiffany into doing this? And you'll never guess. He was wearing a Bigfoot costume, and she caught him and had him all weekend, had him in the basement and didn't figure it out till it's too late. So there you go. That is my conspiracy. I told you I had one tonight, and I'm sure that Tiffany and Mark are going to kill me when they come back on the show. But they got a couple months to cool off, so that's good. Oh, actually, a couple weeks because they're going to be back on with our candidate show. But so that's our guy. Now, Rhonda, we'll let you have a conspiracy theory. I mean, it's not, it's your funeral if you do this, but go ahead if you got a conspiracy.
Yeah, I got one. I'm waiting for the pedophile network that I think is blossoming me out of Indianapolis and Indiana, and I think we're going to see some really big names dropping very soon.
Ooh-wee. All right, Ellie Mae, that's a good one. Pass the pot holders or pot passers or whatever. But wow, is that okay? That might be borderline conspiracy fact, maybe the way you said it. So anyway, folks, next week we're gonna have George Middleton on, and I think he's one of the coolest cats in Indiana. He's a jazz piano player. I mean, he's just so cool. We'll probably have to turn the heat up in this place just to keep from getting frosty. So we're going to talk about, some family issues. And I think that ties in well with what we had tonight. So I don't know what we're doing here, but we're actually covering some pretty decent topics for our first TV show on Channel 40. So stay tuned. Keep doing what you're doing, audience. We loved having you on tonight with your questions. And we will see you next week, same time. Thanks a lot, Rhonda, for coming on. Jordan, you did a great job. I think, we'll try it again next week. So everybody give the peace out, and I'm going to find the end here. And there it is. All right. See y'all next week. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, John.